So you don't want to go for an entire semester and you've got plans during the summer, but you still want to study abroad. What do? You listen to this interview to get started. David Carlton does a great job of explaining the timing he picked and why he picked it. You can actually study abroad for a month and even less in most cases, and most students don't know that. So if that sounds like you and you really want the international experience but don't know how to get it, listen to this interview with David Carlton of The Ohio State University. All right, enjoy.
The three biggest reasons only 10% of students study abroad: they're afraid of being homesick, they don't think it's safe, and the number one reason people don't study abroad is cost. We're here to dispel all that, find out exactly how that 10% crafted their study abroad journey and how you can too. I'm Chris Carlton, and this is the Study Abroadcast.
All right, welcome everyone to another episode of the Study Abroadcast. This is Chris Carlton here with, ironically, David Carlton. We have the same last name, and he goes to The Ohio State University. He studied abroad in France and Morocco, and he was nice enough to be on the show. David, thank you much for being here, and how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Right. So tell me a little bit about the process that you took to studying abroad. What basically everything leading up to the departure. So why did you pick where you picked? How long did you go for? When did you go for? Like what semester? And did you apply for or receive any scholarships and grants? Things like that.
Yeah, so for me, I kind of came into school knowing that study abroad was an opportunity that a lot of people had pursued. And of course, anybody who studies abroad, pretty much is going to recommend it to everybody else they see. So kind of with that influence, I figured I would kind of keep my eye out and see if any opportunities became available. And luckily enough, Ohio State's Office of International Affairs pretty much broadcast all of their available programs. And the specific program that I went to, once again, was to France and Morocco. And it was actually the first year that program to that specific location with these specific professors, the specific curriculum, all of that was put into place. And for me, I am an accounting major. So one of my big concerns this summer was being able to find an internship. So I knew that doing a study abroad for the summer was not going to be the best option for me. And on top of that, I didn't know if I was ready to study abroad for a whole semester. For this specific program, it was a month long. It was during the month of May, right after school ended. And for me, that was not only the perfect amount of time, but also the perfect time of the year where it still allowed me to finish up school, have a normal spring semester, but then also have a summer internship, which I ended up doing as well.
Yeah, so you rounded all the bases then, huh?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. And so it was a month long. And did you apply for any scholarships or anything like that to go, or do they even offer scholarships for if you go that short of time? It's interesting.
Yeah, so for the most part, Ohio State scholarship opportunities are pretty various. I think one of the most interesting things is, especially when it comes to study abroad experience that's only a month long, your scholarships can pretty much come from anywhere. So my specific scholarship actually wasn't through the university, and it was just kind of through a connection where I was able to ask around and find out what scholarships were available. And I ended up finding kind of a more general scholarship that was pretty much usually based towards tuition, but I was able to use it towards my study abroad tuition, which worked out pretty well.
Nice. Okay. And so before you left, did you have any fears or doubts? Were you kind of scared of living abroad for a month?
Oh, absolutely. I didn't speak any other languages other than English. I had never traveled abroad prior to this experience, and I really just did not know what to expect, especially while taking classes.
Yeah.
Well, we took a 3-credit hour class that was on global studies, but for me, it was just a whole lot of unknowns. But I knew at the end of the day, if I hadn't done it because I was nervous or because I didn't know what was going to happen or what my experiences were going to be like, I would have just regretted it, once that time passed.
Right. And then, so with the cost, did you save it all for it? You went for a month, and other than you paid for the plane ticket, but other than that, was the cost of living pretty much the same? I know people spend a little more when they travel, but was it really that bad, or is it something that you really had to budget for?
Yeah, so with my specific program, actually, all of the trip costs were in kind of one segmented cost where it was already all together. So that included roughly about 60% of the meals while we were going to be over there. It included all of our hotel stays. It included all of our travel costs. So actually all of that was already packaged. And then the same with the tuition for the class, all of that was already together. So at the end of the day, they kind of came to us with, you know, an already established cost and said, this is just the cost associated with the whole trip. The only thing that you'll have to cover is any personal spending money that you want to offer. And like I said, the other 40% of the meals. Mm-hmm. So for me, for the cost I paid to go abroad for a month, it was very, very cheap, especially when considering I did get class credit. So with that scholarship, I was pretty much able to use that for a large majority of my costs. And then I would say the last 20% of my costs I just paid out of pocket, which, you know, considering wasn't bad at all.
Which is fine. Yeah, it's like you paid for 20% of a trip to Europe.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. And then, so once you got there, tell me about, you said you were traveling around quite a bit. You were staying in hotels. What was your living situation like? Did you have roommates?
Yeah.
Where were the students from? Were they all Ohio State students? Were they students from all over the world, all over the United States? How did that work?
Yeah, so there was a group of 29 students and anywhere from 2 to 5 professors, depending on where we were in our trip. So all 30 of us, or I cannot remember specifically if it was me plus 29, but specifics aren't necessarily important. So roughly 30 of us all met at the Columbus airport and flew out to France together, and we stayed together the entire trip. So in terms of trip timing, we spent 1 week in Paris, where there I had 2 roommates in a hotel. Following that, we had a week in Aix-en-Provence, which is in the south of France. And during that experience, we actually stayed in homestays. So each of us had a homestay family, and depending on kind of the distribution of wherever your homestay family was and how many students they could take, you could be by yourself, or I believe the largest group of roommates, well, not necessarily roommates because some did have their own rooms, but the most in like one homestay family, I believe, was 3 students. So anywhere from 1 to 3 students for that homestay experience. And then we traveled to 4 different cities in Morocco in about 8 days. And then after that, we flew back. And during those 8 days, I had roommates as well while we were in hotels.
Okay, so you were always kind of moving around, and then you were with the homestays. That was probably the longest you were in one place, right? How long were you in the homestays for?
But the homestays and Paris were 7 days.
Oh, really? Okay, so you got to dip your toe into pretty much everything, huh?
Yes.
Okay, and so tell me a little bit about what was your favorite memory from over there? Tell me a good story from your time in France and Morocco.
Yeah, absolutely. The best moment I remember was, first of all, seeing the Eiffel Tower for the first time, and secondly, I believe it was either the next day or the day after, we were able to go to the Eiffel Tower and actually go to the second level and kind of see all of France from that Eiffel Tower, and that was probably to date like one of the most incredible moments that I can remember.
Wow. And then were you never in a classroom the entire time, or did you have to actually go and take classes and tests and homework?
Yeah, so excuse me, pretty much the way the program worked was at most mornings, maybe 8, 9, 10, whatever it be, depending on what the day was set up for, we'd have anywhere from like 2 to 3 hours of class, and that class involved lecture on whatever we may be doing that day, or lecture relating to something covered prior. And also it involved discussion. And then of course, whatever briefings we may have needed for whatever we were doing that day. And then on top of that, we had a few papers that we had to write throughout the trip, and then a final paper at the end.
Oh, and then how many credits did you get?
3.
3 yeah, that's such a good deal just for a month.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's just, I'm telling you, what year are you right now?
I'm a sophomore.
I'm telling you, you should try to, if you can swing it, you should try to do it again. That's one thing I regret. I didn't actually get the audio with it, but if you look on this podcast, I have a really good friend of mine that I grew up with during his undergrad, he studied abroad 4 times actually.
Yeah, so actually not this upcoming spring semester, but next spring semester, I'm hoping to be in Madrid, Spain.
Oh, really?
For the entire semester. So
nice.
That's kind of the plan and the hope now, to go with one of my best friends, but we'll have to see where it takes us.
Yeah, we'll have to circle back and interview you when you're in Spain. You said Madrid?
Yep.
Ah, nice. Okay, so you're in France, right? You got to tell me about the French food. Is there any food that you got to try that you've never had or you wish you could get back here in the United States?
I would like the first thing that jumps out to me. I believe I had it once prior to going to France, but once we were in France, I think we had it like 3 times, and that was escargot, which is basically snails. Yeah. And I thought that was really, really good. Like if I could get like authentic like that back, like that's the first thing I'll take for sure.
Yeah, you can get it here, but it's probably not the same as in France.
Right.
Okay.
And that's kind of my guess too.
And you obviously had a good time. You're going again, or you're trying to, you're planning to. What would you tell someone who, like, if you have a buddy or a girlfriend or something who's kind of on the fence about studying abroad and not really sure if they should go, what advice would you give to them?
My biggest thing, and it's actually what I would say convinced me to go to France, or not to France, try to go to Spain, is actually my friend he was the one who convinced me to kind of pursue this opportunity to go to Spain. But at the end of the day, we're, at least from my perspective, I'm only going to be this age once. I'm only going to be this young once. I'm only going to be able to travel this much without restrictions pretty much at this time. And on the other side of it is, in 10 years, it's pretty hard to imagine, especially me, but also anybody else, to look back and say, oh, that was a bad decision. Like I just haven't heard that from any one person. And I don't really see like where the reasoning could come from that it would be a bad decision to study abroad for however long you decide to do it.
Right. Okay. Yeah. That's kind of the common thread that I've heard, is that, well, not that I've heard, but that I knew going into it, is that now is the time to do it. If you're going to live somewhere else, it's the perfect time to do it, because you're never going to get to do it again for the rest of your life. So it really is a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Right. Absolutely.
So do you have any recommendations as far as a book that you've read that maybe has motivated you or touched you, or maybe apps or blogs or websites that you used for studying abroad?
I would say in terms of study abroad, no. I think most of my resources came from either those who had planned study abroad programs or those who had studied abroad themselves. And I think that's pretty much the best resource as well, just because you can ask whatever specific questions you may have. And then, of course, you can kind of find out that their personal experience firsthand. So for me, that was kind of my biggest thing.
So word of mouth, just listening to people that have done it before, right?
Yes.
Okay. And do you have a favorite quote you want to share with the audience?
A favorite quote? I don't know if I have a specific favorite quote, but I think rather like I like to think of a concept. And one of my biggest things, it helps me kind of limit my stress, keep things in perspective, and ultimately try to be as happy as possible. Is just, at the end of the day, I always try to remember that everything's going to be okay. Especially now, like the small kind of bumps along the way, or whatever may be happening, is not going to look that big down the road. So it's just like important to keep that end goal in mind, and important to always remember while you're doing the things that you do.
Yeah. No, so not as much a quote, but maybe a David Carlton mantra, huh?
Yeah, I guess so. Maybe something like that.
Okay. And I think that's all I have. Do you have anything you want to add before we take off here?
The only thing that I would want to leave with is, once again, say, if you are considering it, in 10 years, I challenge you. Well, let me correct myself. I challenge you to think of a way in 10 years that studying abroad would be a bad decision.
Oh, that's I haven't heard about that before. That's a really good way to put it, David. Thank you. All right.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, David Carlton, everyone. And did you have a blog that you were doing for Ohio State?
There was a blog post, but I actually, it's through the Office of International Affairs through Ohio State, but I'm not sure specifically where it is actually.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, I think I can find it. I think that's how I found you, so I'll link it up. Guys, give us an honest review of the show. Let me know how I'm doing. Talk to me on social media. David Carlton's here, and we're gonna be back tomorrow with another episode. So stay tuned, and we'll talk to you again soon. David, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, that was perfect. Good. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the show. Be sure to check out all the really neat infographics on the rest of the posts as well as the interviews. There's a lot of good information. You should also download Studying Abroad 201. I really recommend it if you need kind of a fire lit under your ass for studying abroad and you need some motivation. It crafts my journey and exactly what I did. Also, we can email you new interviews or you can connect with us on social media. All right, thanks a lot.